Hey, Margie here. Today we're going to talk about something that can truly enhance every aspect of your health, including your bones. It's about cultivating coherence. And what is that? That's the state where the body systems are in sync with each other, where the heart and brain are working in harmony. And our special guest who's going to help us dive deep into this topic is Dr. Christine Schaffner. And Dr. Christine is a board certified naturopathic doctor who has helped thousands of people recover from chronic or complex illnesses through online summits, her Spectrum of Health podcast, a network of imminence health clinics, and renowned online programs. Dr. Schaffner goes beyond biological medicine, pulling from all systems of medicine and healing modalities, helping patients reclaim their wellness and reveal their brightest light. And she's also one of the hosts of an upcoming summit, The Art and Science of Cultivating Coherence. And in today's episode, she talks about the health benefits of coherence and what steps we can all take to increase the coherence in our lives. So I promise you this interview will open up your eyes to new possibilities. So stay tuned. Welcome, Dr. Christine. I'm so happy you are joining me because there's really no one better to talk about this topic. And to me, the topic we're discussing today is so important because, everybody cares about their exercise and their nutrition and their supplements, but there's something more. And when I look at it as a secret sauce almost. And when you tap into this other field of energy and coherence, which we're going to talk about, truly miracles happen. And so I'm just so excited to be here and share this information with everybody listening. So thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Margie. It's always so lovely to be in conversation with you.
So let's start. I always love to hear the backstory. And you really have a very impressive backstory of how you got into this, especially a person who's been dealing with, you've been working with people, not just who have maybe unusual, but when people have no idea where to go and they're the ends of the rope, those are the people you see. So you have a very interesting background. So I'm curious how you came in yourself, in your own life, to be so involved with coherence and all of this type of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for asking. And yeah, my patients are my greatest teachers, and they inspire me every day. And as you mentioned, I see patients from all over who really are struggling with these, what we call in modern day, these complex chronic illnesses. And they've often been passed from doctor to doctor. They often, are told that it's all in their head and they just need Prozac. These are people who are really suffering on a regular basis. And I'm always, tasked with asking the reason, like, why. Let's be detectives. How do we unwind this complexity with also elegance and looking at, systems from all angles. And my quest to help people, aspire to get better and better and to heal on not only a physical level, but I believe our bodies are these barometers for our spirits, and giving people who are open, a path to looking on, maybe the energetic, emotional, mental, spiritual aspects of health as well. And so I've always been super curious. And, as I've done, two summits and a relaunch that I think over 250,000 people joined, the Body Electric Summit. And so that was like kind of my first time like speaking openly. Like I was like super curious about this, and I interviewed all of these experts, and that also deepened my passion and understanding, and I brought that to the treatment room. And then 2020 happened, and I think all of us had some kind of like transformation, we were called, to go through in 2020. And I look back at that time and I was a completely different person and had a different life. And I had a lot of challenges, and I, really was seeking my own personal and spiritual growth during those times to navigate those challenges. And I found the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, which many of my patients had already, kind of shared with me. And I saw some patients get really a lot better faster with this work. And I was just always curious, but I didn't dive in on a personal level yet. And so I found myself going in 2021 in Orlando to a retreat, and I was like hooked. I was so hooked and intrigued because for those of you who know Dr. Dispenza, he really is stretching us to bridge like science with spirituality. So there's this whole meditation aspect, and then this whole scientific research that he's doing to see how our bodies and our, spirits and our minds are affected by this profound work that we all have access to, and it's all within us. So I was on that journey, and I was already seeing kind of some things happen in my life that were, pretty exciting. And then in 2022, I was, faced with my own health challenge. And I had been through a lot of stress during that time. And so I had some symptoms that I was just like chalking up to, like, how we can just write off, like, oh, I'm just stressed. I know that when the stress kind of alleviates, I'm going to, focus on my body. It's going to be fine. But, there was just kind of these things that kept on happening. And I, long story short, I had met with a doctor, and I finally had got an MRI. And I had, kind of dragged my feet in getting this MRI. And it was in June of 2022. And I, got the MRI. The day later, I was talking to the doctor who shared with me I had a pretty large, benign, thank goodness, but large structure, a tumor in the middle of my pituitary gland. And it was actually smushing my pituitary and putting pressure on my optic chiasm. I was at risk for stroke. It was secreting growth hormones. So it was affecting how I looked, and my blood sugar, and, all of these things. And, she's like, you're going to have neurosurgery. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm somebody who teaches people about the brain and detoxing the brain. And here I am, like, faced with like neurosurgery. And the next day I, realized kind of the gravity of how serious this was, because the neurosurgeon's assistant was calling me, was like, oh, he wants to talk to you before he goes to surgery through the day. And I was like, okay, this seems like I'm like on the priority list. Right. And he was very gracious. And, I've interacted with neurologists and neurosurgeons before. Not all of them had the great bedside manner, but he really did. And he assured me he did 400 of these surgeries a year, and that I'm going to feel better and all of that. But I was still, going through neurosurgery, and that, I had a small daughter, and, all my patients, my husband, of course, when we're confronted with something like this, you're, faced with your mortality, right? And, the decisions that come along with it. And, the dispensa work was like front and center, during this time, because I only had 2 weeks to prepare for the surgery. So there's not much you can do physiologically to change your like biochemistry like that fast. And so I really turned to what I had been studying, and it was like, okay, this is like my exam, right? To go through this experience. And Dr. Dispenza says something that always has struck me and inspired me to learn more. And he says, to change matter with matter takes time, but when you change the field, you change matter. And I've just sat with that, like, wow, like we know how to do that in functional medicine, change matter with matter, and it takes time. But oh my gosh, there's this whole other opportunity to look at the fields of the body and the energy systems of the body, and all of the things that impact that. And if we can really work on that level, can we affect matter? So I, was thinking like, okay, this is the time to really experience that through my surgery. And I surrounded myself. I had some energy healers. I did intention circles. I did like coherence healings. I had dear friends circle around me, and we were all just trying to visualize this tumor coming out easily. And I come to my follow up. I got through the surgery. They go through your nose, by the way, which is incredible that they know how to do that. I'm so grateful that people spend their life figuring out how to go to people's brains through their nose. And I was at my follow up about a month later, and everything had gone pretty smoothly. And I was asking about the pathology report because I had donated some of my tumor to research. It was at a university hospital. And he said to me, kind of like, this was like kind of off the cuff at the end of the appointment, I am going to be studying your tumor for a long time, Christine. Like, why? And he's like, there's different cell types. It's kind of unusual. And most of all, I want to understand, why your tumor came out so easily compared to the others I do. And that was like my validation and my experience in my, world. That was like a moment where the universe I felt was speaking to me. And that, I could have very well gotten through the surgery, without this understanding, right? But having this understanding and, putting these principles into practice, did I help facilitate maybe an ease of removal or a better outcome than I might have had? I don't know, right? And I really also felt the power of prayer during that time. I had many, many people pray for me, which I felt so blessed. I have so many lovely patients. I had like flowers coming, like it was almost like somebody had died. Like, every week, like a new set of flowers would come. But that day, like the surgery, people knew I could feel the presence of all of this love around me. And it was quite powerful. So, I see people struggling and, going through things that can seem very scary and hopeless, and there's no solution. And I always want to stretch ourselves. There's always a solution. We might have to just turn and look at these other ways that we can experience life, depending on where you are with your desire to do that. So that, I've been on this journey and this has inspired me. And, I just continue to seek out information and educate myself and go through my own experience to continue to dive, deeper and deeper. Like, how do we create more access and information and insight? So this is like at the forefront of an office visit rather than like an afterthought, like, oh God, we've tried everything. Now you've got to turn here. So that's where I've been, Margie, over the last few years.
I just love this because I'm on the same belief system. To me, when you plug into spirit and you plug into everything that's available, that really so many people are just disconnected and don't realize there's tremendous power, and it's completely life changing. And that's what I was seeing way back as a physical therapist because I've always been spiritual and always utilized what else is open, looking for signs and really getting guidance throughout my whole life. And I meditate and do many different practices. But when I would start teaching this, originally I felt, oh, my physical therapy patients aren't going to be interested. And then some of them started to be interested. I said, what the heck? I'll start teaching them. And I think that was the most powerful thing I've ever done, was really help people, give people tools to connect. And that's what I see. And then when they continue these practices, truly miracles happen, like a neurosurgery going easier. And that
Yeah.
was I do agree with you. That was your sign, like, yes, you are on the right path. And
Yeah.
so I'm totally in alignment, and this is how I live my life. So I'm excited to share what you've now taken from this. I mean, I'm really excited about your summit. We'll talk about that later because I know there's going to be so many different avenues. But what personally have you used in your practice that have found, what would you say are the most important tools that maybe we can share that people could even get started with now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the biggest piece of this puzzle is to educate people first, right? And giving people this framework, like obviously this came very naturally for you, Margie, in your own life and, your own experience. And, I think a lot of us want to have like a framework of like, why does this work? Or how do I engage with these things? And we can talk about the how to's. I mean, I think the biggest how to's that we can go through is understanding this part of how we are wired to connect and wired to heal. And also that we all have access within us to um, really these practices of for blanket words, meditation, right? And then, bringing it to the chronic illness world, it's not only that, I think there's ability I can go through like group healing and intention and supporting each other on that level. And then there's biohacks, right? So when we learn about these principles, when people are really sick, I often hear, which is really unfortunate, when people are really struggling and really sick, and they're spiritual people, they have a really hard time connecting. So they can't just meditate right away. They have to get stronger. So there are tools through like sound and light and frequency work that we can do to support and strengthen the body so that they, as they get stronger, they can use their own instrument, but, more and more. So I guess, where I'd like to start it, if it's okay with you, is this idea that, we're all, we're not alone in this universe. We're all surrounded by this field of connectivity. And there are people who are studying this. The ideas, Tesla started and Max Planck and, pioneers today like Nassim Harriman are looking at the what we call the 0 point field or unified field. There's also people who are calling this the electric universe. And it's this idea that space is not a vacuum, but it's a highly charged fabric of information and connection, and that we can tune into each other and connect with each other through this information. And when we look at also this field of information, whatever you want to call it, some people liken it to source, the divine, God, there is a quality of it because um, this field through science, the study is not only a unifying field, but it also is full of potential and information. And when we think about life in that way, we start to think of how we can interact with it. And I kind of look at, a lot of my work through the body electric. I started studying the biofield and kind of like the modern day term for maybe what, ancients have called our aura or energy field. And is this a measurable field of electromagnetic energy, also photonic energy, and subtle energy that we have around us? And I start to think like we are, these mini fields within a larger field. And the more that we can tend to our own field of information and energy through principles of coherence, I can talk about too, we can access something bigger and access something greater than ourselves. And we can also connect with each other. And so, what that looks like is a lot of the science, which is really beautiful. I co hosted the summit with Dr. Roland McCready, and he has been an inspiration for me and his work. And I continue to try to wrap my brain around, but his work is through the organization Heart Map. And when we want to kind of break this down, how to like understand this, we can start with the heart. And our heart is this beautiful, obviously, it gives us life, circulating oxygen in our blood. But our heartbeat is a very amazing instrument to organize our energy. And so our heartbeat, there's something called heart rate variability, which is the time interval between two beats. And no time interval is the same. And the more variable that we have between those heartbeats, between the time between the beats, the more flexible we are, the more it's a sign of health. The less time we have and the more kind of methodical and, rigid that comes, the more that we are in kind of a rigid state of regulation and where our body is not in as much of a healing state. Kind of think about it as parasympathetic. So through kind of math and everything, what Dr. McCready is able to see is when people are in states of love, appreciation, and gratitude, there is a coordinated kind of rhythm that emerges, a coherent wave of electromagnetism that is emitted from the heart. And this has a very organizing energy for our nervous system, for our brain, for our field, for our body. There is more information actually flowing even from a neurological level from our heart to our brain and our brain to the heart. So we can modulate our whole, our limbic brain, our nervous system, and create more synchronization and coordination of communication through just being in these meditative states of opening our heart. I've talked to Dr. McCready too, and we can kind of get a little esoteric, but there's also this idea that the heart is a portal to kind of our higher self, and that way that when we're in these states, we're kind of in a more receptive mode of accessing information, as I mentioned, through if you visualize your field or the greater field around you or the divine or whatever you think. But there's a physiological benefit of this state. I mean, that's what I think is so beautiful about how we're wired to heal. That when we open our heart and we access this portal of love and appreciation and gratitude, which we have to cultivate. There's a lot of things in life that take us out of that, right? And not to say we have to suppress all of our emotions. We have to feel all of the things, the range of emotion of the human spectrum. We have to feel sad and angry, and we're going to have worry and fear, and we're going to be irritable and all of that. But the message is not to stay in those states. And if you're in a highly kind of period of stress, like cultivating like 5 to 10 minutes to really cultivate this state, because that's going to have a ripple effect in your experience and also keep your body strong while you go through stress. So, that is just like a quick tool, just kind of like your heart hygiene, getting in these states where you just bring into your mind's eye somebody you love, something you love, an experience that can really just, I mean, I always think of my daughter, and it's just like, my heart can just expand very easily. And then I'll pause a moment because I want to make sure I'm answering your question before I go on to the like research about our connection with each other, how our hearts talk to each other, and how we can pick up the electromagnetic field of our hearts together, and also Mother Earth. We're connected to, and there's a lot of cool science around that as well.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And it's so interesting because the Heart Math Institute has done so much research, and you can actually see what the coherent wave looks like when you're in appreciation and love and compassion versus anger, fear, and frustration. It's totally different. So how healing that you can just add more compassion. You can add doing deeds of loving kindness, a gratitude practice. That's what people don't realize, that it's just as powerful. It's a huge tool for your entire health. And it's actually been, research has shown that. So I think to me, this is why I teach a happiness program, because
Or
I found that it's so powerful, but that the research is just not bogus. There's
yeah,
actual research, and they can actually see the heart rhythms and how that, being in coherence improves your immune system. I mean, it's amazing. So I just love all the things you're presenting. Yeah, so continue, because as you said, just stopping and visualizing your daughter, something you love, is going to change your physiology. That's what's so beautiful about this, that these easy practices, as long as you do them, it's not great to do it one time, but if you continue doing them and integrate them into your life, truly you change, and everything around you changes as well as your health. So, okay, just continue. These are great.
thank you. Thank you. Um, Roland also has studied the interaction between each other, right? And I think that's a really important concept about how we impact each other, right? And how we can connect with each other as well. And he calls it cardio electromagnetic communication between two hearts, right? Where this information, just think about our body, with our heartbeat, we're generating electromagnetic information, right? There's electric current moving through a conductor, creating a magnetic field, and that is moving through space, which we measure in conventional medicine through the EKG. And this information can actually affect water. And, we are water beings, right, at the end of the day. And so these fields can actually impact. He studied even like picking up, in the early days, people's heart, basically their heart rate variability and their electromagnetic field, or their electromagnetic field from in water. And he's also used magnometers to pick up the magnetic field that is generating, not just electrical current. And basically, um, they find that we can either, create more coordination and synchronization and connection between hearts, or we can, disrupt people, and, get them out of sync. Think about this term coherence. it's kind of a nebulous term, but it has a lot of scientific meaning. But kind of from a kind of a metaphor perspective, think about it as order and alignment and harmony and connection and synchronization. When things are coherent, they're in flow. There is a beautiful communication that happens that synchronizes our physiology. And so there is connection between each other, which I think is really beautiful. And you can impact other people by tending to your heart field when you think about it. So if you want to be kind of a tuning fork for your community or your clinic or your family, how do you cultivate this beautiful heart energy that has an impact on other people and that you can entrain other people to, if they're open, you can have a impact on them so that they can start getting in more of a coherent state. And then there is this global consciousness initiative that is really quite fascinating, where Dr. McCready and he is studying the impact of Mother Earth on people, on their heart field, and the impact of when you get a group of coherent people intending for Mother Earth, like how that affects the magnetic field of Mother Earth. And there are changes that happen. So heart math is hooked up with, I think, 12 to 13 around the world, these magnetic field sensors that they're doing all these cool measurements. And they also have an initiative where they have an app where you can take their inner balance technology and basically measure your coherence. And if you're in a group, measure the group coherence as well. So I think it's just fascinating. And it's, I think, a really beautiful model to tune into, especially in these days where we feel like we might not be able to impact, or the problems are too great. We're not, able to create change. And your field matters, and what you feed the field matters. And you are a ripple in the great sea of humanity, and you can choose how you want to participate. And there is this beautiful impact that is being studied. So I think it's an empowering viewpoint of life as well. Because again, these days we can, you can tune into a lot of, disharmony and decoherence and, the lack of communication and desynchronization and kind of, a lot of chaos and disorder. And how do we meet that? And I think it's just this cultivation within us is really a very empowering way to look at life.
I think everybody can agree because when you walk into a room, is that person living with an open heart or is it closed?
Yeah.
You can feel everything around you. So I think people can relate to that. And as you said, what you focus on grows. So if you're focusing on all the disharmony, you're going to get more of that. What is a tweak? Because we all want to be the tuning fork and I
Yeah.
think it's interesting because people sometimes think, oh, working on your own happiness and all this is so selfish, where it's
Yeah.
actually the opposite. Because when you change your field, just like you said, everybody's field around you will start changing. So it's probably one of the best things we can do in these very tough times we're living through. So why don't you share? Can you share like one thing? Okay. Like what could I do? I'm feeling, you talked about the heart and visualizing love and compassion and something that makes you, feel love. Is there anything else that you suggest doing that can start a tuning for?
Yeah, I know, right? There's so many things. I think like really finding your path, right? So gratitude practice, meditation, grounding even has a physiological effect to kind of create more coherence within our electrical and our blood systems, and our energy systems. I also am really intrigued in the world of sound, and sound healing right now. There is this idea that our cells could, basically communicate with music. There's this biomusic that there's a whole field of sonocytology where they measure the music that comes from cells. And I think that, I mean, that's a whole other, amazing idea. Right. And then how, because again, this idea that we're water, right? We're mostly made up of water. that we are the perfect kind of instrument to be impacted by sound waves. And, there's different ideas about the physics of sound through even great thought leaders like John Stuart Reid talks about sound, these sound bubbles, kind of these emanations rather than just these waves. But water basically is a great conductor of sound, and sound can organize the water within our body. And if you listen to music that is, uh, conducive to getting you in a state of, rest and relaxation and happiness, and can, make you feel connected and, kind of lift your vibe, that is actually organizing and having an impact on, the water within you, which has an impact on, your energy system and your cellular systems, and can also help you shift, your mood and your ability to maybe get into those states of gratitude, love, and appreciation that might have been harder than others. And there are things like sound baths, there's tuning forks, there's just, music that you love. There's also vibration beds, and I also use a little instrument called the AO scan that has an inner voice program that gives people balancing music to listen to that can drop people into parasympathetic. So there's a lot of different ways to experience sound, but I think it's a really beautiful body of work that, most people have access to, and most people can feel that shift within them, through their emotional state when they're listening to the sounds they love.
How wonderful to actually think it's therapeutic. It's one
Right.
thing, we all love our music, but to actually, know that this can be changing our fields and making a
Yeah.
difference. How nice is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of research and beautiful people. There's a great book called Sound Medicine by Dr. Kulrich Chodhari, and Eileen McCusick's doing a lot of great work with biofield tuning. Her book Electric Body, Electric Health is an amazing, resource. So, and then of course John Stuart Reid and the Cinescope, and his whole kind of way of looking at how to make sound visible through putting the vibrations and the frequencies of sound on these plates that change the structure of matter. And it's a cool way to visualize. I'm a very visual person, to visualize the impact sound can have on matter.
And in your summit, I saw that there are talks on sounds in your upcoming
Yeah,
summit.
we have Eileen McCusick. We also have Jonathan Goldman on, and he is, talking about sound. And, the summit covers, a lot of, what we've been talking about, from these principles of heart math and heart brain coherence and meditation, also kind of the emerging field of quantum biology, and also looking at, the water within us and the light within us, and how sound impacts us, and also looking at consciousness and, connecting with, group consciousness. It's kind of this whole, like, spectrum and range. You can choose your adventure within the summit of, kind of what you feel drawn to. But there's a lot of beautiful thought leaders. And, Dr. McCready is interviewing a lot of his research friends and people who have been by his side in this research, developing this field. And then I kind of tune into the, clinical mindset. And, so it's a blend of art and science, which is really, our goal.
Now, I can't wait to listen to it, because anything you learn, I'm always so open to any new techniques, anything I can add is just, such a win-win situation. So let's bring it. So I'm so excited, and it's really soon. You want to just tell everyone when it starts?
Yeah, October 30th. So it's the last week of October. So,
Yeah.
it will be free, and, please check it out. And I really hope that you're inspired by this body of work that we, spend a lot of time putting together.
After hosting 2 summits myself, I know how much work it is. It's
Yeah.
not a small feat. It is a tremendous, tremendous feat. But
Yeah.
it's really a labor of love, because you're changing lives.
Mm,
And, to me, this topic is one that really is life-changing.
mm,
And it just changes the quality of your life. That's what I found. You want to share what you feel? So I can't wait for this, and we'll have the links in the show notes.
Wonderful.
But can you just also share, as a physician, what you've seen now? Because now you've been incorporating these principles. You want to just share one or two things that you've seen? Because it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. There's kind of many, I guess to bring it into my clinic, there's a few things I think off the bat. We have a technology called the sound of soul that brings your heart rate variability and converts it to light and sound. And people kind of bathe in the field of their heart and the light of their heart. And we've seen some really beautiful shifts with people. And then they have that music that they can bring with them. So it really helps people shift on an emotional level where they might have been, plateaued or stopped with their treatment. So I can think of a handful of, dear patients who've had that experience. I also, use, we have intention circles weekly in our clinic. And that's a state of coming together and, supporting each other in our healing intentions. And so that has had a ripple effect. And some of my patients, I've even shared to go to Dr. Dispenza's coherence groups. And I've seen really beautiful things happen when people also do that work that, have these beautiful volunteers who just, create a field of love around people and the impact that that has.
What have
And
you seen physically? Because I think sometimes people are like, oh,
yeah,
that's nice. Like, what actual symptoms or changes in their health
yeah,
have you witnessed?
I have a podcast that people want to dive in deep where I interviewed this woman, Julia, who basically had stage 4 cancer. And her cancer, she came to my office and I don't even treat cancer. And, she hadn't been treating her cancer and we kind of got her on a plan, but she was very advanced and did not have a good prognosis at all. Well, at all. But she had a great mindset and she was very excited to explore the realm of healing and esoteric. And at the time, I had a woman who is part of Dr. Dispenza's authorized groups, really encourage her to do one and, get involved. And she had a complete healing and she looked completely different than where she started with us. The light kind of came back into her body. She had a collapsed lung that no longer was collapsed and functioning. Her tumor is shrinking. She graduated from hospice. And it was like, in modern day terms, a miracle. But she was a huge teacher for me. And, I saw that with my own eyes. I saw her in my office and she was one of the sickest people I've seen. And, for her to have that experience, we really limit ourselves through our own thoughts and our own perspectives of what's possible. And if we can remain open that, there's an unlimited potential around us that we have access to. And, if we can line up with that and, be open and curious and receptive to that, there are many, I think that miracles can be common and not so uncommon these days. So,
Yeah, I'm a big believer in miracles as well, and that you need to be open and what's possible. Let's just focus on the bones for a minute, since this is a
yeah.
community who really does care about the bones. You want to just share how this applies directly to our bones and our bone health?
Yeah, I think there's like so many angles we can think about, but from my lens of looking at the body through this beautiful aspect of looking at the electrical body and the electromagnetic body and the photonic body and the role that what we would call structured water, which is this fourth phase of water, the plasma form of water, plays in our physiology. When you look at people who look at the body this way and have studied it, our bones are basically liquid crystals. They're basically a very, a form of fascia, a dense, obviously, structure of the fascial network that its job is to basically, through compression and the moving around of that crystal through movement and walking, generates a piezoelectric effect. And that basically can generate this electrical current that can move through our bones and travel through the electrical system, not only the nervous system, but the fascial network. So think about your bones as adding to basically that coherent flow of electrical information in our bodies. And the healthier and stronger our bones are, the stronger, the better crystals they are, right, to generate coherent information throughout the network of the body. And they generate, a field as well. And so, I think about this a lot, and that, we don't look at, our physical body from this lens a lot. But when you start reading beautiful research from people like Maewon Ho and Dr. James Oshman, this is a real part of how we are wired to distribute information and energy in our bodies. So having healthy bones is a really, really important part of having a healthy electrical body, having a healthy coherent field that it's contributing to generating. So I think it's a big part, a very often underlooked part of, this part of healing.
Yeah, and then it goes the opposite way too, having this incredibly coherent field and going with the flow, all of that is going to affect the health of our bones. So it's sort of it
Totally.
goes goes both ways. I just love that.
Bi-directional for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this is just so, so wonderful. We could go on and on because there's
Yeah.
so many tools, but I think the key thing is to let people know that more is possible. And I think, as you said, the first thing, just opening people's eyes that there is this other element that can completely, I really believe, completely change your life, but expedite your healing and have so many positive, just positive impacts on every aspect of your life. So I'm just so thrilled about this summit. Also, Christine, would you just tell people how are you working with people now? So people, if they wanted to work with you, what are the options?
So I have a clinic in Seattle called Immanence Health, which means the divine within. And myself and we have two other doctors and a nurse practitioner. We work together to have team medicine to support people recovering from chronic illness. So you can visit us in Seattle, or we do telemedicine. So depending on where you are in the country or in the world, we can establish care through Zoom. So that all of that information is available if you can enter with my clinic. I also know that not everyone can come see us. So we have, I have a podcast for education. I do obviously these summits. I have different online courses I've created just to give you the education that I am sharing in the treatment room on a regular basis as well.
I have to tell you, because you also, I have a podcast that you did a while ago with me on heavy metals. And
Yeah.
so when anyone asks me, or if there's someone who needs, I said, the absolutely best person who can
Oh,
help you with these difficult heavy metals is Dr. Christine Schaffner. So
it,
I've been sending people over the
the
years.
big part, thank you so much, Margie. It's part of our work that we, look at, obviously the immune system of people, but we look at the toxicant burden, and heavy metals are, just really common in our lives. And I'm really passionate about sharing, especially with women who are going through menopause. They can release, lead from their bones into their blood, and they can create a lot of neurological symptoms and, exacerbate menopause. So there is a very safe way to tackle that. But it's imperative because, we want to get that energy out of our body, because it doesn't lead, it does make it harder to be coherence.
And it really plays havoc on our bones. So it is important. But we have one of the other podcasts you did a while ago, which was quite excellent on heavy metals.
Thank you.
So this is so great. I'm excited about the summit because I'm going to go because, as I said, to me, this is so important. And I practice this every day, and I just love it. And you continue to grow no matter where you are. Am I right about this? There's no end point. No matter where you are on this journey, any place you can start is good. Just starting a gratitude practice is good.
Yeah.
But each tool you learn just takes you on another step. And, each step higher just really elevates every part of your life. That's sort of been my experience with it. And in these times we're living through, we can't look at the world through, these glasses. We have to be real, but why not be able to flow with it instead of letting it just totally knock you over? So,
Yeah.
so is
Yeah.
there anything you want to leave us with before we end?
No, I mean, I think that's beautiful, Margie, and I really appreciate the opportunity always to connect with you and be on your podcast. And yeah, I really, have a message that I really always want to, share of hope. No matter what you're going through or what challenges you're facing, whether they're health or, mental, emotional, spiritual. There's so many resources and so much available to you. You might need maybe a change of perspective or an opening into a new toolkit, but I'm a big believer that there is always a solution to whatever you may be going through. So I hope
Yeah,
you
I love that message.
feel
And
inspired.
yeah, oh,
Thank you.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait for the summit, and I look forward to staying in touch.
I do too. Thank you so much, Margie.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Christine as much as I did. And now it's opened your eyes to see that there's always hope and there's all this energy that surrounds us that we just need to plug into. I am so excited about our upcoming summit on cultivating coherence, where you'll learn even more techniques and be able to then see what you like, sort of like a smorgasbord, see what sounds good to you that you could put into your life. Because I really believe all of this can empower you and make a big difference in terms of the quality of your life. And if the summit's over, make sure to check out Dr. Christine's website because she has so many great tools on there. So thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.